Hi there, Rob Sutherland here. I'm just going to give a little quick video on how to trim things that have an irregular rim. So a lot of times when we make a bowl that doesn't have a level top, we need to find a way to get it on the wheel and secure it such that it doesn't move, but also we don't flatten and damage any kind of features we've made on the rim. So the example I have today is a bowl that has a fluted surface on the outside, and you can see that the edge is a little bit rough or at least has some relief to it, and I don't want to create flattened areas. So this is a great application of a foam bat. This is just a regular pottery bat with foam put on with whatever that spray adhesive kind of stuff is, and then used a Sharpie marker to draw some concentric rings on there to help with the centering. So first thing I'm going to do is put the bat down on the wheel on bat pins, assuming I can find the bat pins. Hopefully this will be the hardest part. And then I'm going to take my fluted bowl and free it from its bat, set the bat aside, and I'm going to eyeball center as best as possible. And then I'm going to spin the wheel. And I am sitting here with my finger held out as a gauge so that I can gauge when I am toward myself now and away and toward and away. So I'm going to stop it when it's toward me and move it away from me. Just a little touch and check it again. I think I moved it too far, so I'm going to stop, adjust it. The goal here is for it to gently ride my finger the whole way around, and you just iteratively get closer and closer and closer until you arrive at that point. Now I've got it riding around in circles. An invaluable tool for this process is a little jar lid like this, one of those ones that's got the pop-up center. I'm not sure whether this came from baby food or anyway, they're on those Starbucks fancy Frappuccino drinks in the glass jars. I think baby food all comes in squeeze tubes now, so no help there, but just a little jar lid. I'm going to place it on the center. It doesn't have to be perfect, but what that lets me do is run my finger on that lid. It's smooth, so my finger just slides on there and allows me to put enough downward pressure that my bowl isn't going to go flying up in the air when I start to trim it. Now, this specific design has got flutes that come all the way down to the foot, and so I don't really want to take much off the outside, and the proportion is already pretty nice. This is about half the width of the rim, so I'm just going to kind of clean up the outside edge and leave those flutes the way they are. What I want to do is I want to cut away some of the interior, and you'd think that would be impossible because the lid's in the way, but I can actually get in there and start the cut, cutting downward. When you're doing this kind of work, you want to stop frequently and remove the trimmings. So they'll kind of get up under your tool and mess you up. I also like to trim with my clay a little bit softer than a lot of people do, so I've got to get that taken care of so that it doesn't adhere. It means I need less pressure to cut down into the clay. This is actually, practically you could throw with it. Let's talk a little bit about the angle of the tool. So I have got this tool here. It's one of those teardrop shaped tools, and it's got a bevel on the outside of the tool edge. And so if I come in with the edge that I'm cutting with kind of horizontal or flat to the surface of the clay, I'm going to be scraping the clay off, and that's going to create a lot of drag and it just doesn't work as well. If I elevate the back of the tool and come in where I'm kind of scooping the clay out, I'm going to get a much better trimmed surface, and it's going to need less pressure to get the job done. Actually, I should say pressure is somewhat of a misnomer because I'm not pressing into the clay. I'm moving down into the clay as the clay gets removed. I think that was actually a really bad word to use for this type of trimming. If you feel like you're pushing, you might just push all the way through the pot. Instead, what I want to feel like I'm doing is stabilizing and cutting the clay away a little bit at a time. And I'm just really controlling the depth with what I have here, which is 3 points. I've got the point where I'm cutting, and then I've got 2 points of anchor back here on my thighs. Now, there's nothing holding that pot down other than gravity. So I'm being very gentle. I'm making these little thin, wormy shavings come off. And I'm using the narrowest part of that tool, so I'm doing the least amount of drag. That's going to produce a surface that's got a lot of pronounced swirls in it. I'll come back with it more flat using this part of the tool here to smooth it all out, but I have to be careful to take a very light cut because, as I said, nothing's holding that pot down at the moment. I like for the feel of the inside of the trim foot to be as if there was a line coming up like a dome, and it goes through the foot and picks back up that same line again and continues, so that I've got kind of a uniform curve all the way to the top. So that means that the center is higher than the outside edge of that space that I'm trimming away. I'm tapping on it. As the wall gets thinner and thinner, you can start to hear a little bit more resonance, a little bit more hollow sound, and that's a good clue, to stop, that you've got enough of it trimmed away. I had originally left about 1/2 inch in the bottom of this, so I should have a good 1/4 inch to trim away in the center before I start running into trouble. And looking from the side, that's about where I am, so I'm going to stop. The outside edge of this foot, I want to do as little as possible just to kind of clean it up. So I'm going to put this at an angle where I have kind of a 40 to 45 degree bevel, and I'm going to make a really, really light cut. And then clean off the goobers and see where I am. And that is about what I want to do. I don't want to cut down in there and create a trimmed foot. I want to leave that pretty fluted texture that I've got. I'm going to just clean up any little goobers that have found their way to that rim. And I'm going to use my finger to just lightly compress that outside edge. Remember that the foot is where your pottery meets furniture, and clay happens to be a lot harder than wood or wood finish, so you want to make sure that it's going to be as kind as possible. This has got a fairly heavy looking foot because I'm not trimming anything off the outside edge. So visually I feel like it's a little bit too heavy. And so what I want to do is take a little bit more off the inside edge. So I'm going to just drop the tool down and just make that a little bit more delicate. No real functional reason for that. It's just, I think it looks better where it doesn't look so heavy. And I also beveled that inside edge of the foot so that everything is going to be slightly rounded. I'm going to take my finger and kind of polish that over. I was feeling a little goober, and it really was there. It wasn't just a phantom goober. All right. So that is about where I feel happy. A little detail there. You notice that I like to finish with a move that starts at the inside corner where the foot meets the floor of the bowl and move towards the center. That creates a little bit of a spiral that I think is attractive on the bottom of the pot. And then, of course, don't forget to sign your name to the bottom so you can find it again later. And that's all that needs to happen. One of the beautiful things about doing it on a foam bat is there's no clay to peel away, so I can lift this up and kind of feel it and assess whether the balance feels good. And this feels a little bit bottom heavy, but I think I'm going to call it okay. You can get in here and use your hands as calipers to kind of feel the wall thickness. And I think the bottom heaviness that I'm feeling is that there's just a little bit of extra right in the bottom that I needed to leave to create that nice flowing curve. And on a normal bowl, I could trim some of that away. On this bowl that has flutes, I'm going to just let those flutes go all the way to the bottom and accept a little bit of bottom heavy feeling. And that's what the rim looks like. And that is a close-up of the foot itself. It's where you can see that little bit of a swirl in there. So feel free to leave a comment or email me if you have questions about using the foam bat or trimming things with irregular rims. And thanks so much for watching.